Hi, my name is Tariq, and welcome to Game Fables. Today I will be taking you through the journey of how I was able to make a Flappy Bird clone. Flappy Bird. It took the world by storm in 2013. Everyone was playing it. What does this have to do with me, you ask? Well, after seeing a video made by Game Maker's Toolkit where he made his own Flappy Bird clone with the goal of teaching himself how to become a game dev, I thought this was a great idea and decided I'd steal his method of learning for myself. After many frustrating hours of trying to accomplish this task, I realized I didn't know the slightest bit about how Unity worked. After some searching for a solution to my predicament, I found a course made by Unity themselves. This course ended up being exactly what I was looking for. If you're interested, I'll provide a link in the description. After about 2 months of going through most of the course, I felt confident enough to transform my monstrosity of a Flappy Bird clone into a more civilized monster of the likes you'd find in a Transylvanian hotel. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons to give this sleeping doge good dreams. When first starting on this monstrosity, my idea was to make the background duplicate itself as the player got close to the end of the background. I'll spare you the details, and let's just say this idea turned out to be super complicated and inefficient. For the time being, I decided to just make the background move left and focused on getting the player movement right. As you can see, there were quite a few bugs. When working on the player movement, I started by trying to add an upwards force to the player when the user pressed the spacebar. This resulted in an issue where the player's jump would get progressively stronger if you pressed the spacebar too quickly. After some searching, I figured out that you can apply an upwards velocity instead, and it would give a consistent jump height no matter how fast you press the jump button. Having finished the jump mechanic, I decided to work on the obstacles. Since I had already created the obstacles, I just needed to work on making them spawn. Luckily, making the obstacles spawn ended up not giving me too much trouble. Once the spawn mechanic was finished, I decided it would also be a good time to make the obstacles spawn at varying heights. Finally, having finished with the obstacle spawning mechanic, I wanted to start working on the score system so that we can see how many obstacles the player has managed to fly through. Thanks to the Unity course I had taken the time to complete, adding the score indicator turned out to be fairly simple. What was not going to be simple, however, was actually getting the score to increase as you passed through the obstacles. In order to make this happen, it was necessary to first get the colliders working properly. After hours of searching, adjusting, and continuously failing to get the colliders to work, I learned that I had made a ridiculously simple mistake. You see, at first, I was using the on-collision enter method and was writing the collision script as if it were a 3D game, not a 2D one. After having figured out that this dumb mistake was the source of all my problems, I was both stunned and overjoyed. Seriously, you guys would not believe how happy I was to finally be past this what I assumed was a simple mechanic to implement. Now that the colliders were finished, I took the opportunity to make it so that the player can no longer just fly through the obstacles and instead will stop moving forward and fall to the ground. While doing this, I also made a game status to check if the game was active or not so that I could work on the game over screen later on. Finally, having finished working on the colliders, I asked myself, how hard could setting up the game over and start screens be compared to this? Boy, was I wrong. So, with all my optimism at my side, I set forth on my quest to set up the remaining user interface. I started by setting up the buttons and text, which were pretty straightforward, thankfully. Then, I started to implement the mechanics behind having them show up, disappear, and for the buttons to work. This is where I ran into a bug that was quite elusive. Just like a cockroach, it was hard to squash. This bug caused the Unity engine to crash anytime I would press the start button. After some painstaking hours of investigation, I was able to narrow down the issue to the logic I had used to check if the game was active or not. Now that I knew this, all I had to do was go line by line through my code until I found the source of the bug. It turned out that I had created an infinite loop, which, I imagine, would have crashed my computer too if Unity hadn't frozen itself first. Once the bug was fixed, the UI worked just as intended. Since the core parts of the game were now finished, I was able to start polishing up my code and fix a few other small bugs that were still left. The main issue I worked on was one where the player could still earn a point if they crashed into the side of the obstacle. I definitely didn't want this to happen since you need to pass through at least half of an obstacle in the regular game in order to receive a point. Having finished polishing up this Flappy Bird clone, it was time to work on sound design. And thus ended my journey of how I made a Flappy Bird clone. Thank you guys for watching my... wait, what did you say? You want more? We're in agreement then. More is on the way. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video.